Hello, and once again, welcome back to the cellar. And again, my thanks to all those who have subscribed or commented. All comments welcome, especially ready to make these videos better. And incidentally, if anyone has recommendations for a good camera, I'm all ears. In this episode, I'm going to be adding some lighting and a few lighting effects to Leopard Junction signal box. This is Leopard Street. So this is Leopard Junction signal box. This is a Metcalfe card kit, assembled it a while back. There's a little bit of paint work gone onto the corners. It's not fully assembled yet because I'm intending to add lighting to it, hence why the top's wobbling around a little bit as I'm moving it. Fairly basic kit. It'll do. See, I can take the roof and the upper floor off, and the back wall is bowed a little bit. Just the nature of the kit at the moment, basically, because I've painted the inside. So first off, what I need to do here is just pop the floor out, because this isn't glued down yet. I'll be doing that shortly. I've got the interior, and here's a little stove, and inside this I want to position a fire effect, which is going to be like a little flickering LED. Many ways of doing that. The simplest way is just getting a flickering one. This is an external light. It's from AliExpress on China, which is rather useful in some ways. Got a pack of 10 of these. What I'm going to do is drill a hole above the door here. This is going to go through and give me a little bit of an external light over the stairs. And I've got these warm white LEDs. I think these are 1.8mm from Bright Components on eBay. Not sponsored, just a happy customer. I'm going to put a couple of them into this roof space up here. So that'll light the interior up. As I say, you can see that rear wall is bowed a little bit. Basically, I've painted the inside and it's bowed a little. So I need to put a false wall into the back of this. This is also going to straighten it up and hide the wires, which can then go down. And yeah, then start sticking all this together. So that'll be the next bit to look at on this. So yeah, you can get on with that. First thing to do is test the LEDs. So I use this little test board. Ignore the Arduino and the relay. I'm just using those to give me a 5V power supply via a USB port. Over on the right here we have a flickering orange LED. And here it is with a resistor. I won't be using that eventually. I'm using a controller that doesn't need it. But essentially you just provide power to this. There's another one from Bright Components, and it flickers and it's orange. And it'll do quite nicely. All sorts of other ways of doing this sort of stuff, but frankly this works quite nicely, so I went with this. And we have these little lights. I say this a little pack of these I got from China, so I just need to test this one and make sure this works. When I was recording this originally, I was reading out what it says on the packet. Chinglish at its very, very finest, shall we say. Yeah. They're on AliExpress. They're not hard to find if you just search for model railway lighting. So what we're going to do is stick that in alongside this. Yeah, just bring in the little stove piece in. So this will just basically fit over the top of this. And just give it a little glow effect from inside. It's pretty simple, but I think it should look fairly good. The exterior light, I'm going to test this on as well. This is partially to work out exactly which way round this is wired. I'm just going to stick it in alongside the flickering LED. Not ideal, but it means it's going through the resistor, so it should be fine. So these very fine wires are quite awkward to use on a breadboard, but as you'll see shortly, the light does burst into life. So just waiting for that to come on here as it's wiggling these wires around. There you go. So you can see that works. Again, I'll be able to control the brightness of that a little bit. And then trying one of these warm white LEDs out. I've used these before, but this is just, it's always worthwhile just giving a little bit of a test. This will flicker here because it's in parallel with the orange LED, which obviously, being flickering, is varying the current draw, so it varies how much it's to go through this one. But again, it shows basically that the lights work. So we know that's done, and we can carry on. So next, on with making the back wall. This is a relatively straightforward process. I'm not going to go through the whole thing in real time. It's fairly simple. This is basically just taking a measurement here. I need a piece of cardboard that will fit inside this back wall and be about like 3/4, a little bit more than that in terms of the height. Just need to obscure the wires coming down, and I need to leave a little bit of space at the bottom. So what I'm going to do now is get on with cutting that and fitting it, and I'll speed that up and I'll be back with you shortly. Right, now with that cut, I'll carry on doing a little bit of a test fit into the building. As you can see here, this is actually slightly on the large side. It does more or less fit, but just needs a little bit of a trim. So the next step is just give that a little bit of a trim, and then can get on with cutting the rest of it. That's basically where this is going to go. It'll be a little bit closer back to the back. Just need to put a few little spaces in, sort of at the ends, bit in the middle, and that'll leave a couple of pockets that the wires can go down. So again, cut that more from the grey board, but as you can see from the front, yeah, you can see the wall. You can't really see the unpainted bit above, and yeah. So let's get the extra bits made and get them attached. As that's the spaces cut, and I'm going to use some of this Bostik adhesive. It's just the all-purpose clear stuff. I'm going to use this to stick the card in. You use PVA, you could use Copydex, you could use any other glue that will stick card. This stuff has the distinct advantage it grips remarkably quickly and dries pretty quick. This is essentially what I use for putting the kits together as well. So just stick a little bit of a smear onto here. You'll see how much in a minute. I apologise for that. Let me see. So you can see just a little bit. Lid back on, that goes on, and a couple of clamps, and really that's it. So I'll do that one, I'll clamp that, I'll get the others done, and I'll be back with you when that's finished. That's done. That's had a couple of minutes to dry. So now what we're going to do is install this on the back wall of the signal box. So here we go. It's a little bit of glue on the fitting pieces. That's just going to go in and stick to the back wall. Same glue as before. So this will just go in quite simply. Just a little bit on here. I'll stick that in. Not too worried if you get a few little threads across on this. It really doesn't matter. This bit's never going to be seen. So that goes in. Slides in. Now this needs to have a small gap left at the bottom because I need the floor of this upper story of the signal box to go in. So once I've got that lined in, just pressing it down into the corners and then into the middle, and then really just a case of just letting that dry in place. So I'll sort of hold that down for a little bit. As you can see, put the floor in here. It needs to be able to go in. Doesn't matter too much if this wall's very, very slightly above the floor, but it does matter that it fits. So that can go in. That can have a few clamps, and that will be left to dry for a few minutes. The clamps in. You can see the little gaps down the back. Sort of straighten the wall up a little bit, and those little gaps through there. That's where I'm going to feed the wires through. So I shall let this cure for a while, and I shall be back in a minute. Okay, so that glue's had about 10-15 minutes to dry. Now I just need to paint the inside of this to match the rest of the walls. So we have this is Games Workshop's Ushabti Bone acrylic. No idea what an Ushabti is, but I know what colour its bones are. So give this a little bit of a shake. This can come open. This stuff's easily available in the UK. I don't know about elsewhere. Just a little bit of water on a brush, thin that down a little bit. Paint it straight over the card. It's an acrylic, it'll go in, it'll dry, it turns into plastic, and nice and waterproof at the end of it. There's other ranges of paint, AK Interactive, MIG do paints, Army Painter, Vallejo, I've got a fair few of their paints as well. Incidentally, if you are looking for paint ranges, sometimes it's worth not just checking out model railway places and hobby places. Have a look, rummage around, so you can find a gaming shop. They have all sorts of models like this for scale models for a range of games, fairly reasonably priced. So I'm just going to apply a single coat of this, and I shall be back when that's finished. Right, that's the painting finished, and that's had about half an hour to dry. I ended up repainting the rest of the inside of the cream, as I've actually got the slight shade wrong, as you can sort of see at the end there. This is Shabty Bones a little bit darker. I think I'd used Screaming Skull, I think it's called originally, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a beigey, creamy colour, so that'll work. So next up is working out exactly where we're going to fit the flickering firelight, and we've also made this out of the same 2mm grey board, very crudely cut. This is going to house the lights in the roof, because there's nothing there to actually attach them to at the moment. So that'll go in. It'll have the lights fitted before it gets glued in, but that's roughly where that's going to go. You can see that'll suspend a couple of lights inside quite nicely. They won't be visible and they'll shine down. So yeah, but first off, where are we going to put our little stove? So I just need to work out roughly where I want to put this. I mean, you could go anywhere in here. It just needs to go somewhere that's moderately practical. Work out about where, somewhere over towards the side with the door, not too close to the back. So yeah, about there I think will do. That'll work. So take that off, and what I can now do is I've got to mark out and push 2 holes through the card. This is so I can put the legs of the LED through. I'm not going to wire it at this stage. I'm going to solder wires to it in a minute. So that's going to go through there. So I just need to mark out roughly where that's going to go. So as you can see, this is all being done pretty much by eye. Small little drill. Drills through the card quite nicely. That's going to go through. I'm going to make a second hole, and I'm going to put the LED through, and then I should be back. And yeah, so the LED is now nicely in place. Just stick the little stove piece over the top, and that's roughly where that's going to be. I'm not going to glue it yet. I want to make sure all this works before I glue it, and I've got the rest of the interior to go in yet anyway. But that, for now, is the stove done. So see, there's a couple of other little bits and pieces that'll eventually be inside. A little lever frame. It's a secondary kit that Metcalfe make to support this. So that's that bit done for now. So what we do is put that over to one side. I'm now going to have a look at the outside light. So this I want to go above the door. And in order to fit this, I'm going to need to basically just drill a single hole through the card and then widen it a little bit. This the drill here is far too narrow for this, but what it does is it gives me a nice small starter hole. I can then enlarge to a suitable level. I want this to be a bit of a friction fit at the moment. So I'm going to do this, I'll get that fitted, and then we'll be back. As you can see, this took a few attempts to get this to actually fit in place. Once the holes have been sorted out nicely, it did actually go in, thread the thing through quite nicely, and then here we are, and there we are. We have a little light. It's pre-painted in green, which is nice, which sits above the window there, sorry, above the door. The next step is thread the wires through the back of the cardboard. This is going to get a bit of glue added to it now. I know the light works, and what I don't want to be doing is pulling the thing out of position as I'm doing further work on this. So this can go in. As you see, the lights will go down the back there. That'll end up with a little dab of glue on the back of it, and we're going to have to mock some holes in the card floor to let these wires go down through. Yeah, so now just marking out a few little holes. This is basically just to punch through the brown card layer right at the very back. This will go down into the ground floor of the building. It's where the wires are all going to end up. Eventually there's going to be some connectors down there, so it's a case of just drill a little hole, make it a bit wider. These are quite fine wires. They'll feed down through that quite nicely, and that's that sorted then. And then the next step is going to be to add the lights to the little roof bar. Yeah, so here's a little bar. What I wanted to do here is stick 2 of these little warm white LEDs through. at about 1/3, 2/3 positions, or 1/4, 3/4 positions, doesn't really matter. So we're going to get a couple of these out. These are going to have a hole drilled either side of the upright part of it in each position, as will allow the LEDs to be pushed through from the bottom. I'm going to use one of these little control boards to control this. I forget the exact chip on these. Is a pulse width modulation controller. This is basically why I don't need resistors. So we're going to connect everything up to one of these. This will be remote from the signal box. It's 24 channels, so it'll control 3 channels I need here, and then the rest will drive other buildings. This little board is just a test one I use for, well, testing things with. It was originally going to be part of a different layout. It never got installed, so it's now just a generic test board. So let's mark these out, get these drilled into position, and quite importantly, mark the positive and negative terminals, so when I come later to add the wiring, I get it all the right way around. But back in a minute. So yeah, just finishing off the holes here, ready to insert the LEDs in, just putting them in loosely. Yeah, they're right. Press them in flat, so that one goes in okay. Yep, comes in with the wires either side of it. Come to the other one, press this in, and clunk, the LED actually snapped. So yeah, they're not quite as strong as they look, so point of note, if anybody's using these, try and get the holes reasonably accurate so you're not putting any stress on the wire legs. And here I just grabbed another one after widening the hole up, and that went through. So yeah, there goes through here. It's now loosely in place. And then we have the light bar, complete with a pair of LEDs installed. What's left to do now is bend the legs on the back. On one side the legs are going to bend inwards because I want them to touch, because I want these two LEDs to be in series with each other, and then I'll be soldering that in a minute. The other side, both the legs are going to bend the same way, basically so they don't touch, and it makes it easier to add the wiring to them. So just finish that off, and then we will get the soldering iron out. So now ready to add some wire to the light bar. So as I say, the wires are bent over. That side's going to take the wires, and that side is going to have the two legs soldered together to form the circuit on that side. Some fine gauge wire, orange, which is going to be the plus 12 volt supply, and black, which is going to be the DC ground. So essentially, next step is heat up the soldering iron, solder those two together, and add the wires. Little bit of solder flux on this. This isn't really a soldering tutorial, so I'm going to skip through the next bit until you can see this in place. The other thing I would note is these LED wires solder together really easily, and the wires from the bits of wire really didn't want to go on. So in the end I just ended up wrapping them around the leg a little bit more and just feeding enough solder in until it finally took. And that's the light bar done. 2 wires added to it, the solder blob on the other side, and ready to install now into the top part of the signal box. So what we shall do is carry on here. So we bring this part here back. Now what I need to do next is make a few more holes for these 2 wires to go down. So just a little bit further along from the other one. So these will go in. I can then push these wires through, or once I know where I can push these wires through. That's obviously going to be slightly larger as these wires are a little bit bigger. And then I need to solder the wires to the bottom of the flickering LED before I put these through, basically so I don't end up with a hot soldering iron right next to some freshly fitted wire. So I shall get that through, and I shall solder the other LED. So that's the two power wires there we see to the flicker LED soldered onto the bottom of it. There's no glue holding this in place. It'll eventually have the upper part on. There'll be a connector in this lower floor at some point. The Pixies have had the box of connectors, so that's going to have to wait a while. So that's there. See, those wires will come out. What I now need to do is stick the lighting bar in the upper story, which is going to be relatively straightforward to do, as essentially it just glues in. There's a little bit of boss stick goes onto each end of it, making sure the wires come out the back. And that is then in place. I feed the wires down through it. They then go through the hole in the ground floor, and we can refit that. And at that point, the lighting install is essentially complete. And what we then do is look at how we're going to start hooking this up to the little control board. So there we are, that's all assembled again. The control board is hooked up, the three 12-volt feed lines are all common together. The ground return lines all go back into different terminals on the control board. So let's go see if it works. And here we are back over at the layout. This is not in its final position, it's just down at the front. Now, as you can see, the little control board at the front has got a red LED glowing on it quite nicely, so there is power to that. You will also notice the distinct lack of any lighting effects in the signal box. Now, when I first switched this on, all three sets of lights, so the interior light, the little flickery fire, and the light above the stairs came on, which tells me they're all wired up correctly, and then probably went out again, which tells me there is a little bit of a software fault here. I've subsequently discovered there is also a wiring fault. This little board has not been modified in the same way as the original one I was using for testing, so that I had to make a few little software changes there to deal with that. And yeah, it still didn't work, so I was sort of scratching my head slightly to try and figure out why. There are some loose wires between this and the board, and then the software controls are a little bit inverted, so it didn't actually illuminate properly. So I went away, did a little bit of code work, and what comes up is the result. So here we go with the code sorted out, at least mostly. So as we stand here looking at this, I sort of set this up nicely. I then need to go and go away and crawl off under the board to go back to my keyboard so that I can actually control this thing. At the moment I don't really have an easy way of controlling it from up front, so I wander off and do that. You've still got the nice little red glow of the controller board there, and shortly we'll see some of the lighting effects kicking in. So just bear with me one moment while that starts its run. There we have the above stairs light, looking rather nice. That goes off. Then we have the flickery fire light inside, which I think is quite a nice effect. That goes off as well. And then we have the interior lighting. Now here it's not particularly bright. I don't want it to be particularly bright. So basically I'm pressing buttons at the moment here, just trying to see what works and what doesn't work. The problem I've discovered is there is a fault in the loose wires. There's a lot of little Arduino type DuPont connectors involved. Sometimes all of the control signals aren't getting to the little board that's driving all of this. That will be fixed in the full installation, because it's all going to be proper wiring and connected in. But yeah, simple little project, made slightly more complicated by the fact I want this dimming control capability on the wiring. But overall I think it looks rather nice. So yeah, pleased with that. And there you have it. I mean, this is the here it is now shown again with the steps back in position, and sort of a little bit of a back screen just to hide some of the wiring mess behind it. Overall, pleased with this. I'm going to be using the similar techniques on other building kits as they go in later, but yeah, I think for now that's that. So, as always, thank you for watching. Comments in the section below welcome, on either on the video or suggestions for the future, and other videos or ways to improve these. I'm in the process of looking at another camera which should deal with some of the focus issues here. And other than that, I will see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you very much.